with new materials, with composite materials, with additive manufacturing processes, we're seeing the manufacturing sector and manufacturing teams open up new possibilities to the front-end design community to what new products can look like. That is a very healthy transition. In fact, that's one where the dream of what we would call concurrent engineering, where all disciplines are involved at the beginning of a program and continue to the end, now can be made a reality by the fact that both manufacturing and the design sectors are equal partners in innovation. The third benefit is properly chartered. We believe each manufacturing institute will be a catalyst for STEM education and for capturing the hearts and minds of K through 12 students, university students, and also early career professionals to pursue careers in manufacturing. I have several young members on my team in Lockheed Martin who've joined, and their passion now is to get involved in the additive manufacturing movement as to how they would want to pursue their careers as engineering professionals. The corollary to this in the third benefit is workforce development of established professionals. What an opportunity these institutes will provide if we can do an in-reach into community colleges, if we can do an in-reach for job creation, and what the skills that are now required in the 21st century of a manufacturing worker in today's workplace, where rote hand assembly is long a thing of the past, and familiarity with automation and tooling and advanced methods is the education of the future. The fourth benefit, as was referenced in the opening statement, is the U.S. industrial base and national security. When I started in the aerospace industry 30 years ago, there were over 3,000 printed circuit board manufacturers in the United States of America. I spoke at a conference with the IPC over a year ago where we took score. There are less than 300 of those same printed circuit board manufacturers in the United States today. And if you look in the aerospace and defense industry, probably 10 to 15 of those companies actually can provide the complexity or the high reliability that we need to serve our nation and defend our nation properly. Similarly, onshore presence of whether it's electronics manufacturing, machining, or the like is absolutely vital as we perform our role. If you think of the export regulations that we work with in terms of protecting designs before we, in the national interest, and then ultimately shipping a quality product to the Department of Defense or the three-letter agencies we serve. So, as the national network is formed, we would encourage all companies, large and small. We would encourage all academic institutions that are focused on science and engineering to look for opportunities to participate and connect. We've proven that we can do great things as a nation when we reach high and when we come together to shape the future. This is a Reach High initiative. And so in closing, we warmly congratulate the authors and the ITF on the release of this report, and we look forward to the adoption of its recommendations. Thank you very much.
Well, great. Thank you so much, all three of our commentators. Before I open it up for questions or comments from the audience, I just want to ask any of the panelists or David if there are any responses in response to what you've heard, if you want to add anything now, or else we'll just open it up. Okay, good. Why don't we, if you can identify yourself, and then
sure.
Richard.
Richard McCormack, I'm editor of Manufacturing and Technology News. I covered the formation of Semitech. Bob Noyce, who is the inventor of the integrated circuit, came to Washington constantly and became president of Semitech. Is there any industry initiative to make sure that this gets funded through Congress? He worked like mad to do that. He became president of Semitech. Anything from industry to get this thing through Congress?
Bob invented Intel, by the way, before that.
You sort of, well, I think you put your finger on something, which is that this is not a semiconductor manufacturing initiative or a metal industry or materials, and that may be an issue. I do see challenges to this initiative in trying to cover all bases in a sense. So it needs a lot of support from different places, I guess, and building a team of a handful of industries. And there's clearly interest based on the response to the RFI, and so maybe identifying from that group. And there's also the, David, you know, the manufacturing partnership team. So there is already some assembly of support. Maybe those are the organizations where it'll come from.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. So we have the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership Steering Committee, which was 12 companies and 6 university presidents. And I think that's the nucleus, but I think it needs to be built up, needs to be developed, and it's going to take that industry a voice to make it happen. So I think that's work that has to be done now.
You have more than a dozen companies respond to the RFI that was led by the National Program Office.
I think it is going to be harder to get that high-level CEO support, and that's just not what CEOs generally do these days. You know, you have a few exceptions here and there, which is really laudable. But I think it's a mistake if we wait for that kind of leadership. And you know, I think there's broad support by industry. I think we've seen that both on this panel as well as in the submissions. And I think that's pretty real. But I think Congress ultimately just has to say that and say, you know, there's support there. This is something industry needs and industry wants, and we just have to do it. Other comments or questions? Bob?
I'm Bob Hershey. I'm a consultant. To what extent can the internet be used to get together the meetings of everybody who's involved in this and get their contributions to the process?
Well, I think some of these institutes might have the virtual aspects. I mean, I can imagine some of them, depending on what the problem is, operating in that mode. I think many of them will have physical facilities and you know, a strong geographical presence. So I think it may vary from problem to problem. But certainly there's a need to take advantage of the infrastructure, you know, information infrastructure, and use it to economize on costs. And I do think that, you know, IT is penetrating into manufacturing in a big way. And so increasingly, and I think some of the breakthroughs that Steve was alluding to, you know, have their roots in that capability. So I think there will be opportunities to use that.
I'd like to add to that. I think in addition to what we would think of as the World Wide Web in terms of access, we cannot discount the role of what social media can play. And I will use one example in terms of Twitter as a technology that can disseminate information. Some of you, us in this room, if we're not on Twitter, sometimes think of it as being a casual conversational forum. I personally subscribe to 120 different Twitter feeds each day that keep me in touch with advancements in manufacturing, advancements in the electronics industry, and it is a great way for any new institute to be able to do news releases, publicize reports, and also connect the community. And so that would be an encouraging thing we would offer, to look to the web, but also look in addition to the web for channels that would reach out.
You know, I'll just mention that having been around for 30 years, SRC, just yesterday, our CEO was recalling that we used to share the results of our work through paper. We killed a lot of trees, sent out reports to all our members, and then we went to CD, and apparently he used to send out 10,000 CDs regularly to the engineers at our member companies so that they would have copies of the results. Of course, now it's all available on our website, and not only that, but I think to one of the benefits that you are alluding to, we have regular e-seminars and e-workshops where hundreds of people will be listening in, you know, as I said, real time to the results of a researcher reporting to the member companies. So these tools, I think, can really help in the case of distributed organizations very effectively.
David's point about the Twitter, we think of Twitter as people talking back and forth or disseminating ends of it. To me, the exciting aspect of that infrastructure is in a manufacturing plant, it's machines reporting on their states. And the whole structure is there, it exists, So all of a sudden, this piece of equipment is down, it tweets out to whoever wants to follow,